Welcome back to Aggie Sports Overtime. In the SEC, it's never too early to talk football. This week, Athlon Sports released its college football magazine previewing the upcoming season ahead. On the cover, Johnny Manziel, and a very respectable preseason ranking for the Aggies at number 9 overall. Now, here to talk about the issue, which made it to stands this week, is Mitch Light, the senior college football editor for Athlon Sports. First of all, Mitch, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Now let's start with your top 25. Texas A&M at number 9 in those preseason rankings. There are 6 SEC teams in that top 25. What do you like about A&M to put them in your top 10?
Well, it's funny. The intro, you said a respectable ranking of 9. It tells you how far A&M has come in a short amount of time. That we've heard from A&M fans who think we have the Aggies too low, and we might. But there's obviously a lot to like about Texas A&M, and it starts at the quarterback position. Johnny Manziel, perhaps the greatest single season by a quarterback in college football history. But it's far more than that. Offensive line will still be a team strength, even without Luke Jokel. I think the running back position will be a lot better depth this year. And obviously with Mike Evans back, they're going to have a lot of good young receivers. They've recruited very well at that position. They're going to have a ton of weapons on offense, score a ton of points. I'm intrigued to see what defensive coordinators have in store for this offense. Maybe there's nothing they can do. I mean, Nick Saban has been pretty vocal talking this summer about looking at film, trying to slow down this offense. Maybe there's nothing you can do to slow it down, but defensive coordinators in this league will now have 8 league games, 13 games overall of film to watch about trying to slow this offense down.
No, I don't think there's any doubt that people would say A&M is going to be a good team, no matter kind of what the record. They're going to be in the running. But is it too early to have A&M in the upper echelon of the SEC when you've got teams like Alabama and LSU sitting, staring you right in the face in the SEC West? I think is that what you've got to be a little bit careful about when you've got teams with such a history right there?
Yeah, that's the one thing that separates the track record. LSU and Alabama and Georgia in Florida, and now I guess we can kind of put South Carolina in that mix, have proven that year in and year out they're going to be top 10 teams. Despite personnel losses or injuries, they have the depth, they have the winning tradition, whatever you want to say, that they can overcome obstacles. We haven't seen that yet from A&M. But as far as considering them an elite program, I do personally. I've seen enough. I saw what Kevin Sumlin has done on the field and in the recruiting trail, what that school has to offer, the fan base. I now, at least personally, when I think SEC elite, I put A&M up there with LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. Now, they need to prove it on the field over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but I think they're headed that way.
There's a lot of good stuff inside this magazine, which obviously you like to get people talking a little bit. I think Aggie fans might also find it interesting that Johnny Manziel is not actually the favorite to win the Heisman. Aggie fans probably wonder why he's not the front runner. You guys put Braxton Miller of Ohio State there at number 1. Just kind of talk about why you see that playing out maybe the way you have it.
Much debate in the office about who we were going to pick to win the Heisman. And obviously, some people might think we're trying to outthink ourselves by picking Braxton Miller. Just look at the track record, how difficult it is to repeat as Heisman Trophy winner. Only one man has done it, Archie Griffin, and I think that Braxton Miller is going to have a phenomenal season running Urban Meyer's offense at Ohio State. I think some people, unfortunately, might be a little reluctant to have a repeat winner. So kind of all those factors, we just threw it, just think that Miller's got a really good chance. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Johnny Manziel won it for a second straight year. I just think Miller's positioned himself well to be right up there with Johnny.
Now, you also had an area where you ranked new coaches for 2012. Kevin Sumlin is second behind Urban Meyer. Do you see Sumlin as a guy that can keep A&M at that elite level, like maybe a Nick Saban or Urban Meyer that we might be talking about? Coach Sumlin in the SEC West being at the top for a long time.
Well, yeah, kind of like what I said before. I think this program has everything there to be an elite program. They just need to prove it on the field. And, I think when you're talking elite coaches around the country, Saban's the first name you mentioned, Meyer's the next name you mentioned. I wouldn't put anyone else in that group right now, but I think Kevin Sumlin can be near that very, at the top of that next tier, with, Steve Spurrier, guys like that. He did a great job at Houston, did a great job in year 1. And, a lot of this is about X's and O's, and he's proven it on the field. But as you guys know, down there in Texas, a lot of it's about recruiting, and he's answered the bell there. They're signing great classes. So, it's hard to foresee what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years, but I would not be surprised at all if we're talking in 5 years and Texas A&M has been, top 5 team in 3 or 4 of those years.
Now, obviously, finally, the schedule seems to set up pretty well for A&M with the crossovers being Vanderbilt and Missouri, and there's been a lot of talk lately about the way the schedule is going to be over in the SEC. But obviously, September 14th when A&M plays Alabama, do you think that game will decide the SEC West? I mean, we saw that A&M beat them last year, but it was still Alabama that went on to win it all. Do you think that's going to be the early kind of test to see what's going to happen in the SEC?
No doubt, no doubt. On paper, that looks like the battle for the SEC West. Now, LSU will have something to say about that, and things rarely work out, exactly how not just us, everyone thinks. You look at the schedule and say, the winner of that game is going to win the SEC West, because last year, as you mentioned, A&M wins in Tuscaloosa. That did not decide the SEC West. Alabama still won. But, yeah, huge game. Can't wait to watch. It's going to be, you guys know better than me, but probably the biggest home game in the history of that program, and there's been a lot of big ones. So it's, all eyes in the college football world will be on College Station that day.
Mitch, want to thank you for joining us. Also want to mention that you can find more from Mitch and your entire staff on athlonsports.com. Again, thanks for joining us, and can't wait for that new season.
Thanks for having me.